This is the Wizard News, reporting on June 29th, 2020. Chicago violence. 61 shot, 15 fatally in Chicago weekend shootings. ABC 7 News. Chicago WLS. For a second straight weekend, violence in Chicago has impacted the lives of dozens of people. According to Chicago police, 61 people were shot and 15 were killed this weekend, between 6 p.m. on Friday and 11:59 p.m. on Sunday. 3 of those fatal shootings were minors, police said. Community activist Andrew Holmes shared a picture of his 10-year-old Lena Nunez, who was shot and killed while visiting her uncle's home in Logan Square Saturday night. Major storm rolled through Chicago on June 26th around 7 p.m. It blew one of the umbrellas off the table at Shop and Save near Milwaukee Avenue and Nagel Avenue and Devon Avenue. Chicago's mayor, Lori Lightfoot, asks, on June 27, 2020, some people think COVID-19 is not real. Do you personally know someone with COVID-19? Some of the comments on Rogers Park News has followed. You can speak through a mask. It does not impair your First Amendment rights. In my family, members have died of COVID-19. Believe me, it is real. I beat it in May. I know at least 5 people that were sick before me. Worst pain since childbirth. I spoke to a woman the other day. She told me that she was one of the first to get it. She went to the hospital and they told her she didn't have it. She felt worse. Then she went to Northwestern Hospital and they said she had it. 2 weeks went by between tests. In that time, she hugged people, shook hands, and spent time with her kids. One of our customers died from COVID-19. Yes, I had it 3 months ago and still have residual symptoms. We are called the long haulers. Yes, I had it. My cousin had it, and my best guy friend had it. Yes, an acquaintance recovered, thank heaven. I did. The Food and Drug Administration over the weekend issued a warning on 9 alcohol-based hand sanitizers manufactured in Mexico. It says they contain wood methanol, a toxic substance that could ultimately result in death if absorbed through the skin or ingested. Consumers who have been exposed to hand sanitizers containing methanol should seek immediate treatment, which is critical for potential reversal of toxic offense. Consumers who have been exposed to hand sanitizer containing methanol should seek immediate treatment, which is critical for potential reversal of toxic effects. Wearing a mask is a sign of mutual respect during the coronavirus pandemic. Dr. Mark Smolinski, an infectious disease physician and president of Ending Pandemics, explains why wearing a mask both helps stop the spread of COVID-19 and shows respect for others. As we continue to struggle with the realities of living through the COVID-19 pandemic, I can't help but feel disappointed, even sadness, every time I venture out of my house and witness people not wearing a mask. My rationing of groceries and household goods intended to keep me home for 3 weeks at a time have depleted several times over this pandemic, nears its 5-month mark. Putting on my mask and gloves to head to the corner market or get a breath of fresh air, I am astounded by the large number of people who are not wearing a mask. By Mark Smolinski, contributor, Forbes. Northeastern Illinois University President Gloria J. Gibson has announced the creation of the George Floyd Social Justice Scholarship to invest in students who will become leaders in our community and promote social justice. NEIU.edu/news. This is the Wizard News, reporting on June 30th, 2020. The Cook County Public Defender on Monday joined a broad coalition of community groups, activists, and attorneys in filing a lawsuit against the City of Chicago for denying people in police custody access to counsel and phones. The lawsuit further states that the city's history of unlawful refusals became more widespread following the COVID-19 pandemic and the recent citywide protest over police brutality and racism. Since 1963, the law has required that every person arrested is entitled to communicate with their loved ones and counsel, said Cook County Public Defender Amy Campanelli. For 7 decades, Chicago police have not been held accountable for this systematic violation of human rights. If police would just follow the law, we would no longer be the false confession capital of the world, and communities would have greater trust for and cooperation with the Chicago Police Department. Under Illinois law, people who are arrested have the right to communicate and consult with an attorney and the right to make phone calls within an hour of arriving at their first place of custody. However, the Chicago Police Department has a long history of depriving arrestees access to a phone to reach out to counsel or loved ones. On Friday, May 29th, and throughout the following weeks, more than 2,600 demonstrators were arrested by Chicago Police Department, and many were denied access to counsel. The lawsuit details how the Chicago Police District systematically impeded attorneys from finding and talking to their clients. First Defense Legal Aid Newsletter, June 23rd, 2020. Researchers studying the loss of ego commonly experienced while tripping on psychedelics, such as magic mushrooms, have discovered that a key neurotransmitter may be linked to the phenomenon. A report on the research by scientists at Maastricht University in the Netherlands was published last month in the Journal for Neuropsychopharmacology. High Times, June 3rd, 2020. why it feels like there are a lot more fireworks this year. In particular, several downstream consequences of the coronavirus pandemic may be contributing to firework noise. One is that people are spending more time at home with more opportunity to notice things. For similar reasons, cities are quieter in general, which makes noises more noticeable. Kids have been stuck at home for months, unable to attend school or hang out with friends in normal ways, and fireworks are a fun way to pass the time. And just when there's more potential interest in creating ad hoc city firework displays, there's extra inventory due to the cancellation of many July 4th fireworks shows. Last, but by no means least, it is certainly possible that enforcement of fireworks rules has gotten less vigorous. Perhaps not so much as part of an elaborate plot as a natural consequence of police power being stretched thin. Vox, June 22nd, 2020. "14 more people die from coronavirus, state's fewest daily total in 3 months." Illinois on Monday announced its fewest single-day number of coronavirus deaths in 3 months, with 14 people dying from the virus statewide. Illinois was in the first weeks of its coronavirus lockdown in late March, when the number of daily fatalities was as low. On March 28th, 13 people died from the virus. Monday's total follows Sunday's announcement that 15 people had died. There have now been 6,902 deaths since the start of the pandemic. Block Club Chicago, June 29th, 2020. NEIU has announced the creation of the Social Justice Leadership Housing Award, a new program that provides free housing for incoming freshmen and transfer students who positively impact their university, career, and communities. President Gloria J. Gibson says, "Providing free housing to eligible students while giving them the tools to make a difference in the world is a win-win situation." For more information, go to neiu.edu/housing award. This is the Wizard News, reporting on July 1st, 2020. Featuring Jason Cao Huang, Human Rights Trio, Battle for the Indelible Truth. How to survive a deer or moose attack. Deer and moose are not always the docile creatures they appear to be. The Centers for Disease Control estimates non-livestock animals like deer, elk, and moose account for about 52 deaths every year. And that doesn't include all of the fatalities caused by deer-related vehicle collisions, which push the number well above 200 deaths and $1.1 billion in property damage every year. Lifehacker, October 2016. As we explore new ways or continue old ways of thriving in newly defined individual and social spaces, one thing is clear. The experience of change is both personal and communal. Personal because each of us has had unique ways of readjusting, because this pivoting is a shared experience with others who are proximal and distal to us. Ultimately, this experience has changed both of our personal stories and community histories. As social scientists, we simply could not help ourselves but think, try to make sense of, or even go as far as to find a purpose in this chaos. We could conceive of this unprecedented worldwide event as a real-world experiment on our response to the suffering or death that we read in our news feeds, or possibly know of directly or indirectly. How are we changed by the knowledge or experience of our own or others' sufferings, as well as the death of others? Attention needs to shift from developing or modifying interventions for moral injury to rigorously examining their impact. The social scientific study of moral injury is moving into its adolescent years. While the last decade saw a significant increase in the amount of scholarly attention devoted to the moral injury construct, there is still much work to be done to ensure the next decade of research produces a mature field of study. USC Suzanne Dworak Peck, School of Social Work, Military and Veterans Programs. June 25th, 2020. State Treasurer Frericks encourages nonprofits to apply for food, housing, charitable trust grants. A grant program to help small nonprofit organizations provide food and housing assistance will begin taking applications on July 1st, 2020. Illinois State Treasurer Michael Frericks said today. With more families in need of help due to the COVID-19 pandemic, it is putting a greater strain on nonprofits that offer food and housing assistance, Frericks said. We want to encourage these organizations to apply for the grant funding to carry out their mission to help families during this difficult time. The Charitable Trust Stabilization Fund assists small nonprofits with annual budgets of $1 million or less. Money comes from filing fees nonprofits pay when incorporating in the state of Illinois, not personal or property tax dollars. Riverbender.com, July 1st, 2020. Cook County updated budget projections. Cook County is facing a $410 million budget deficit for 2021, the highest mid-year gap projected by county officials in a decade. This year's budget has also been heavily impacted by the COVID-19 virus and is falling $280 million below projected revenues. The county is legally bound to close both gaps by the end of the fiscal year in November. Illinois Restaurant Association newsletter, June 30th, 2020. Dr. Anthony Fauci says drinking inside bars is one of the most dangerous things you can do right now. Dr. Anthony Fauci, director of the National Institute for Allergy and Infectious Diseases, had some sharp words for America's most cavalier bargoers on Tuesday, who he said are putting others at risk of death from the coronavirus. Bars are really not good. Really not good, the infectious disease expert said during a U.S. Senate committee hearing on Tuesday morning. Congregation at a bar inside is bad news. We really got to stop that right now. Business Insider, July 1st, 2020. This is the Wizard News, July 2nd, 2020. Our background accompaniment is the artist Dave Stryker from his album Blue Soul. The song is What's Going On. Now is a time to learn from Hispanic Americans. The Hispanic paradox could offer a model for civil society. Scholars call it the Hispanic paradox. Despite poverty and discrimination, Hispanic Americans live significantly longer than white or black Americans. It's a paradox because the disadvantaged normally live shorter lives. Hispanics in the United States endure discrimination, high poverty, lower rates of health insurance than both whites and blacks. Yet they enjoy a life expectancy of 81.8 years compared to 78.5 years for whites and 74.9 years for blacks. This resiliency is now tested by the coronavirus, which has hit Latinos particularly hard. Researchers have found another paradox within the paradox. First-generation Latino immigrants tend to live longest, and their children, while better educated and earning more money, die earlier. Part of the explanation may be that what many white Americans think of as traditional American values, an emphasis on faith, family, and community ties, are disproportionately found among first-generation Latino immigrants, but then fade as their children assimilate. New York Times, June 27th, 2020. Two new traffic safety laws effective on July 1st. Secretary of State Jesse White and the Illinois Department of Transportation announced two new laws that will take effect July 1st, which establish tougher penalties for drivers who seriously injure others while texting and driving, and for those who cause severe injury to pedestrians. The first law amends the Illinois Vehicle Code by establishing a 12-month license suspension and minimum fine of $1,000 for a motorist who, while texting and driving, causes great bodily harm, permanent disability, or disfigurement to another person. The second law, referred to as Mason's Law, amends the Illinois Vehicle Code by establishing a 12-month license suspension for a motorist who, while violating the right-of-way at crosswalks and in school zones, causes serious injury to another person. Illinois Secretary of State Jesse White also reminds drivers to be safe during the holiday weekend. Secretary of State Jesse White press release, July 1st, 2020. Don't let the police steal your DNA. One of the most important things we learned is that the police will likely try to get a sample of your DNA. We learned a lot about what the police do and do not have the right to do when making an arrest. One of the most important things we learned is that the police will likely try to get a sample of your DNA, but that you do not have to and should not consent to it. You are not legally obligated to comply with a cheek swab, despite what they may tell you. According to Marianne Kaishan, senior staff attorney at Brooklyn Defender Services, the police have a number of ways in which they might try and trick you into handing over a DNA sample. To put it simply, if you should be arrested at an upcoming Black Lives Matter protest, remember, do not consent to a DNA swab, even if they falsely tell you it is mandatory. Do not accept water, gum, snacks, or any other kind of consumable from which police can later collect your DNA. Lifehacker, June 17th, 2020. In partnership with Undocumented Student Resources, the Angelina Pedroso Center will host its first new multicultural student orientation, a program designed to support incoming students of color, first generation, undocumented, and LGBTQ students during their transition to NEIU from 1 to 3 p.m. Thursday, July 9th. This free program is supplemental to the new student orientation. NEIU Targeted Announcement, July 1st, 2020. This is the Wizard News, July 3rd, 2020. Our background accompaniment, Event Horizon Jazz Quartet, with their album Event Horizon. The song is Dark Waltz When Sadness Comes. A partial prenumbral eclipse will be visible this Saturday and Sunday, July 4th through 5th. The timing isn't a coincidence. Lunar eclipses can only happen during a full moon. However, unlike the Great American Eclipse of 2017, this eclipse won't be total. Instead, only a faint shadow of Earth will fall on the moon. The lunar show begins the evening of Independence Day and ends during the early morning hours of Sunday, July 5th. Unlike the lunar eclipse that accompanied June's full strawberry moon, this eclipse will be visible in most of the United States, including the lower 48 and Hawaii, but not Alaska. A partial prenumbral eclipse happens when the Earth is between the Sun and a full moon. The eclipse begins when Earth's shadow falls on the moon, but in this case, the moon won't be passing through the Earth's dark inner shadow, known as the umbra. A partial penumbral eclipse happens when Earth is between the Sun and a full moon. Eclipses begin when Earth's shadow falls on the moon, but in this case, the moon won't be passing through the Earth's dark inner shadow, known as the umbra. Instead, on July 4th, the moon will go through the Earth's outer, lighter shadow, known as the penumbra. Moreover, this eclipse will be partial, because only part of the moon will dip into the penumbra. In effect, this weekend's partial penumbra eclipse will appear as if a mouse took a small, dim bite out of the northern edge of the full moon. This bite may be difficult to see with the naked eye, so moon gazers may need telescopes or binoculars to see the full effect, according to NASA. LiveScience.com, July 3rd, 2020. Cash isn't dead. People are just hoarding it. While anecdotal evidence suggests a move away from notes and uptake in card payments, data shows there's been a marked increase of bills in circulation across advanced economies. Shutdowns have diminished cash's traditional exchange function, but that's offset by panic-driven bunkering of banknotes, the Center for Economic Policy Research said. Bloomberg, July 2nd, 2020. Illinois Department of Labor alert. Due to the high unemployment rate caused by the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, the Employment of Illinois Workers on Public Works Act will take effect beginning July 1st. The state law requires the workforce on all public works projects to be comprised of a minimum of 90% Illinois residents. The requirement to employ 90% Illinois workers applies to all labor on public works projects or improvements, including projects involving the cleanup and on-site disposal of hazardous waste. As we all deal with the far-reaching impact of this pandemic, the Illinois Department of Labor wants to remind public officials and employers of the requirements of this law, which have not been triggered in recent years due to low unemployment, said Illinois Department of Labor Director Michael Kleinnick. Illinois Attorney General Kwame Raoul pledged to work with the Illinois Department of Labor to enforce the law. As the nation faces record levels of unemployment, the people of Illinois should be assured that government is using all available tools to put Illinois residents back to work, Attorney General Kwame Raoul said. The Employment of Illinois Workers on Public Works Act requires contractors on public works projects to prioritize Illinois workers, and my office stands ready to work with the Department of Labor to enforce the law and ensure that public works projects, which are funded by Illinois taxpayers, are completed using the best workforce in the country. Any public works project financed in whole or in part by federal funds administered by the state of Illinois is covered under the provisions of this act to the extent permitted by applicable federal law or regulation. Riverbender, July 1st, 2020.